Right now, inside the Emirates Stadium and inside the Arsenal training ground, three separate stories are moving at the same time, and every one of them changes the shape of this squad. A new winger has just scored on his debut in a 4-1 win over Girona. A Brazilian midfielder is expected to walk into a medical within days. And on the other side of Europe, one of the best wingers in world football is quietly telling people close to him that he no longer wants to sign a new contract at his current club. None of these three stories are separate from each other. They are connected, and if you understand how they connect, you understand exactly what Arsenal are building this summer. Christos Tzolis walked out for his full debut, and inside 90 minutes he did enough to get compared, in public, by his own head coach, to the player he was signed to replace. That is not a small thing. Mikel Arteta does not hand out those comparisons lightly. At the same time, 2,200 kilometers away, a Brazilian international is packing his bags for a medical, and back at London Colney, one teenager wore the number 39 shirt on a Saturday night, and by Sunday, that same number had quietly disappeared from his profile. Here is what was actually at risk this week. Arsenal are trying to replace a departed forward, add proven midfield depth, and potentially deliver the biggest statement transfer of the entire Premier League summer, all inside the same transfer window, without breaking the harmony of a squad that has just won the league. Get the balance wrong, and you either overload the midfield with too many quality players competing for too few positions, or you overspend and break your own wage structure trying to convince a world-class winger to leave the biggest club in Spain. Every piece of information this week points toward Arsenal trying to do both of those difficult things at once, carefully and on their own terms. If you want the full picture on every one of these stories, broken down properly instead of reacted to in 30 seconds, this is exactly the channel for that. Hit subscribe now so you do not miss the next update, because several of these situations are expected to move within days, not weeks. Let us go through this properly, one piece at a time, starting with what has actually been said out loud by the people who matter, before we get into the two biggest stories of the week. The quote from Mikel Arteta reads as follows: "We are very active, trying to improve and evolve the team. We expect movement in the next few weeks and want to get better. We are very ambitious." This was said specifically when Arteta was asked about Vinicius Jr. My reading of this is simple. Arteta did not deny the question, and he did not dodge it either. He answered a direct question about one of the most valuable attacking players in world football with a statement about ambition and movement rather than a flat denial. Managers who have nothing happening usually shut a question like that down in one sentence. Arteta chose to keep the door open. That is a deliberate communication choice, and at this level, very little is left to chance in front of a camera. Arteta was also asked directly about a reported swap involving Julian Alvarez and Victor Gyökeres. His response was clear: "I am not going to talk about a player that is not ours. Gyökeres is going to stay." This is the most important quote of the entire week for one specific reason. It is the only definitive, closed-door answer Arteta gives across all of these situations. There is no ambiguity in that sentence. Gyökeres is staying. Whatever noise exists around a swap deal, the manager has ended it publicly, in his own words, without hesitation. Compare the certainty in this answer to the calculated ambiguity in the Vinicius answer, and the contrast tells you everything about which stories are live and which ones are not. On Max Daumann, Arteta said the following: "That is what we want when you play for Arsenal. Expectations should be high and should be expecting really good things. We know what he is capable of doing. We want to be more consistent in terms of performance and the actions that he can deliver. I think today he had a really good game." This is a manager setting a standard publicly for a young player rather than simply praising him. Notice the balance in the language. Arteta praises the performance directly, but he pairs it with a demand for consistency. That is not criticism, it is expectation management, and it tells you Arsenal see Daumann as someone who is already being judged by first-team standards, not academy standards. On Ethan Nwaneri, Arteta said this: "On the pitch, he did not, because a lot happened in Marseille. But when you just stand in front of him, you sense the maturity, and he looks like a different man. The experience on paper, it was not ideal, but I think he went through something that is going to help him a lot in his career." Read carefully. This is Arteta acknowledging a difficult spell without hiding from it, while framing it as development rather than failure. The phrase "a different man" is doing a lot of work here. It suggests Arteta is not just talking about football improvement, but about a change in the player himself. Coming from a manager who is usually measured with his praise, that stands out. Arteta again on the transfer window. "We are really active trying to improve and evolve the team, that is clear. We expect to have movements in the next few weeks. We want to get better like anybody else. We will not sit still, and we are very ambitious with what we are doing." This is close to a repeat of the first quote, but delivered separately, which matters. When a manager repeats the same core message in more than one separate answer, in more than one separate setting, it stops being a passing comment and starts being a consistent, prepared talking point. Arsenal want the message out there that this window is not finished, and Arteta is being used to deliver that message deliberately. The fuller version of the Tzolis quote reads like this: "I am very pleased with him. First of all, the way he has adapted to the club, to the team, the connection he has already generated with the boys. I think you are going to love the player. He is a very direct player. He has got the ball between the eyes, I think really good at linking up. He has a lot of similarities with Leo in a lot of the things that he can do and the spaces he can occupy. And then the work ethic that he has. He is a boy that comes with so much hunger as well and wants to prove it. It is a dream for him and we are here to help him." This is one of the warmest, most detailed pieces of individual praise in this entire set of information. Arteta compares Tzolis directly to Leandro Trossard, the very player he was brought in to replace, and does it in specific footballing terms: spaces occupied, directness, link-up play, rather than vague compliments. When a manager gets that specific that quickly about a player who has played only one match, it usually means the technical staff already had a very clear profile in mind before the signing was even made, and the player is matching it early. The transfer update here reads as follows. Get ready, Arsenal fans. Bruno Guimaraes is really getting close to Arsenal. A full agreement could be reached at any moment. From what I am hearing, Guimaraes is super excited about this opportunity. He cannot wait to be an Arsenal player. This is a rumour and it needs to be treated as one, even though the language used is extremely confident. The repetition of the word really 3 times in one sentence is a strong signal of how advanced this is being described. But it is still, at the point of this information, not a confirmed transfer. What we can say with confidence is that the tone here has shifted from speculation to expectation. That is a meaningful shift, but it is not the same as an announcement. This update states that some influential figures at Real Madrid would rather sell Vinicius now than risk losing him for free in 2027. It adds that the current head coach rates him but will not stand in the way of the club's decision. This is a very important piece of context because it explains the mechanism behind everything else in this story. If this reporting is accurate, the pressure to sell is not coming from the player alone. It is coming from inside Real Madrid itself, driven by the fear of losing a top asset for nothing when his contract eventually runs out. That changes the entire nature of the situation. This is not simply a player agitating for a move. This is potentially a club calculating the smartest financial outcome before it is forced into a worse one. The reported update here is direct. Arsenal have submitted a £64.1 million bid to Aston Villa for England international Ezri Konsa. This is presented as a concrete numbered bid rather than vague interest, which puts it in a different category to some of the softer transfer chatter elsewhere in this list. A specific figure attached to a specific player and a specific selling club is normally a sign that talks have moved beyond the exploratory stage. Even so, a bid being submitted is not the same as a bid being accepted, and Aston Villa's response has not been confirmed here. This update claims that the situation between Vinicius and Real Madrid has taken a major turn, stating that the winger is no longer interested in renewing his contract, which has brought all extension talks to a complete halt. It adds that Arsenal are watching closely and have internally decided to push with everything they have to secure the signing. This is the clearest statement yet that the contract talks have broken down rather than simply stalled. There is a real difference between negotiations that are difficult and negotiations that have stopped entirely, and this update describes the second scenario. Combined with the earlier point about Real Madrid's willingness to sell, this is where the picture starts to look less like transfer speculation and more like a genuine opportunity forming, even though nothing here is confirmed as done. This update frames Bruno Guimaraes joining Arsenal as now feeling like a matter of when, not if. It then raises a separate and arguably more interesting question, which is what happens to Arsenal's midfield after that. It lists Bruno Guimaraes, Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Eberechi Eze, Kai Havertz, Mikel Merino, and Miles Lewis-Skelly as players all capable of playing in midfield, and asks how Arteta manages those minutes. This is the most tactically important point raised in any of these updates. Signing one more elite midfielder is the easy part. The harder part, and the part this update correctly identifies, is rotation, squad harmony, and keeping 8 talented players content when only 3 or 4 can start at once. This is not a rumour about a transfer. It is a legitimate question about squad management that will matter regardless of how the Guimaraes situation resolves. This update, attributed to a named Spanish journalist, claims that Vinicius is asking for a package around, but not quite reaching, €30 million net per season, broken down into several parts, including something described as completely unprecedented in Real Madrid's history, a renewal bonus. It adds that while Vinicius is open to lowering his demands, as long as the renewal bonus remains on the table, there is little chance of the talks progressing, and that he wants what is described as a truly historic contract. This is the clearest explanation yet of why the Real Madrid renewal has stalled. It is not simply a disagreement over salary figures, it is a disagreement over the structure of the deal itself, specifically a bonus type that would be new territory for the club. That level of detail suggests this reporting is coming from someone with genuine insight into the private negotiation, rather than general speculation, though it should still be treated as reporting on a private negotiation, rather than a confirmed fact. This update states that Arsenal and Liverpool have been alerted as Paris Saint-Germain step up their pursuit of Ajax winger Mikel Arteta, adding that the two Premier League clubs have been informed of the growing interest, creating a chance to hijack the move. Ajax reportedly value Arteta at €60 million and want to keep him, but Paris Saint-Germain remain optimistic over a possible deal. This is a genuinely different type of story to everything else on this list, because Arsenal are described here as a reactive party rather than the club driving the interest. Being alerted to a rival's move is not the same as actively pursuing a player, and this should be read as Arsenal simply being kept aware of a developing situation involving a third club, rather than evidence of direct Arsenal interest in signing Arteta themselves. This update, again from a named journalist, states that Arsenal have been working shrewdly and discreetly for months trying to convince Vinicius, and that Arsenal have spoken to his representatives about a project that goes beyond the sporting director. It describes Arsenal as crazy about Vinicius, with certain optimism that a deal can go through if Vinicius does not renew with Real Madrid, and claims Arsenal are willing to break both the salary cap and their internal structures to make him a mega offer. It also notes that denials from people around the player, on the eve of new talks with Real Madrid, seem significant, and states that personal terms would not be a problem if Vinicius does not renew. This is the most detailed and most aggressive piece of reporting in the entire set of updates. The claim that Arsenal have been working on this for months, rather than weeks, reframes the entire story. If accurate, this is not a reaction to Real Madrid's contract problems. It is a long-term project that happens to be lining up with a moment of vulnerability at Real Madrid. The mention of denials being significant is also a useful piece of analysis in its own right, because in transfer negotiations, denials at a sensitive stage are sometimes treated by insiders as a sign that talks are further along, not further away. This update states that Arsenal and Liverpool have reportedly been offered the chance to sign Maxi Araujo from Sporting Club Portugal, with the Uruguayan understood to be available for the right price, and Sporting valuing him at a minimum of £51.5 million. It adds that Araujo, who can operate at left back or on the wing, registered 7 goals and 6 assists in 47 appearances last season, and is said to be keen on a move to the Premier League. The phrase offered the chance is important here. This describes a player being made available to Arsenal, rather than Arsenal actively pursuing him, which puts this story closer to the Arteta situation than to the Guimaraes or Vinicius situations. His versatility across left-back and the wing is a notable detail, since that kind of flexibility tends to be attractive to a squad already carrying several attacking options. This update states that Arsenal are prepared to break their current wage structure in a bid to sign Vinicius, willing to go beyond their salary cap and potentially include a large signing bonus, while using image rights to put together what is described as a mega offer for the Real Madrid star. This reinforces everything described in Screenshot 14, but focuses specifically on the mechanics of the deal, wages, bonuses and image rights, rather than the relationship-building side of it. Two separate updates describing the same willingness to break the wage structure adds weight to the idea that this element of the story, Arsenal's financial approach, is being consistently reported rather than being a single isolated claim. This update gives the most specific numbers yet, stating that Arsenal are preparing a potential €100 million bid for Vinicius, with the proposed package including a 4-year contract worth €25 million net per season, and Arsenal also prepared to offer 100% of his image rights, compared to what is described as the current 50% arrangement at Real Madrid. This is the clearest financial framework offered across the entire set of updates. The image rights detail stands out in particular. Offering full control of image rights compared to a 50% split is a significant structural difference, and it lines up directly with the renewal bonus and salary cap points raised in earlier updates. Taken together, these numbers paint a consistent picture of an ambitious financial proposal, even though the transfer itself remains unconfirmed and should be treated as reported interest rather than an agreed deal. The final quote comes from Kai Havertz on new signing Christos Tzolis. I have known about Tzolis from my time in Germany, and the young players have really impressed with their quality and work rate. This is a short but useful piece of internal validation. It is not coming from the manager or from a transfer reporter. It is coming from a senior teammate who has direct knowledge of Tzolis from competing in Germany. When an established player publicly backs a new signing's quality within days of arrival, it is generally a sign that the internal reception inside the dressing room has been positive, which matters just as much as public reporting when judging how a new signing is settling in. Now let us move into the two biggest storylines of the week in full detail. the shirt number signal. Here is what actually happened. Arsenal beat Girona 4-1 to open their pre-season, with new arrivals Christos Tzolis and Ilan Meslier both catching the eye. During that match, young academy player Louis Copley came on at right back, despite being a natural central midfielder, and wore the number 39 shirt. He played well, staying tidy in possession and constantly offering himself for the ball. Within a day, Arsenal's official website had quietly updated its squad numbers. Copley was now listed as number 38, while Braden Clark, who had worn number 37 during the Girona match, was now listed as number 37, a swap that effectively removed anyone from number 39. This matters because of who wears number 39 everywhere else in world football. Bruno Guimaraes has worn that number in all but 3 seasons of his career, and the reason is deeply personal. Writing in his own words previously, he explained that the number was the dispatch number of his father's taxi in Rio de Janeiro, and that it gave him everything. It got him to Newcastle, fed him, clothed him, and paid for long bus rides while he chased his dream. My analysis here is straightforward. A squad number change on its own, involving 2 academy players nobody outside Arsenal's fan base is closely tracking, would normally mean nothing. Numbers get reshuffled for all kinds of administrative reasons, but the timing is what makes this significant. This change happened in the same window that reports describe a medical being scheduled for a Brazilian midfielder who has a well-known, well-documented, deeply personal attachment to exactly that number. Clubs do not usually clear a specific shirt number by accident right before a matching signing is expected. This is either a genuine coincidence, or it is one of the clearest non-verbal signals a football club can give that a deal is close. Either way, it is not confirmation of a transfer, and it should be treated as exactly what it is, a strong hint rather than an announcement. What we can say with certainty is that Copley no longer holds number 39, and that detail alone is worth watching closely over the coming days. The Trossard comparison and what it reveals. Christos Tzolis produced an impressive full debut in the 4-1 win over Girona, with Kai Havertz, Max Daumann and Gabriel Jesus also getting on the score sheet. Some supporters reacted to his performance by comparing him to a different former Arsenal attacker entirely. Arteta, however, made his own comparison public, choosing to compare Tzolis to Leandro Trossard, the player he was signed to replace. Trossard had been an important player during Arsenal's title-winning campaign, but at 31 years old, both the player and the club agreed the time was right to part ways, and he was sold to Besiktas for a fee reported at £17 million, including add-ons. Tzolis has now been asked to fill that role, and his debut suggested he can. Arteta praised his adaptation, his connection with teammates, his directness, his ability to link up play, and the spaces he occupies, drawing a direct line between his qualities and those Trossard offered. What stands out in my analysis is the one clear difference between the 2 players, which is pace. Trossard had excellent technical qualities, close control, footballing intelligence, the ability to find pockets of space, but he was never considered a genuinely quick player. Tzolis, while not being compared to the very fastest players in the world, is faster than Trossard, and that difference was visible during the Girona match. For a team that already relies on quick transitions and direct running in behind opposition defences, adding genuine pace to a profile that already worked well tactically is not a small upgrade, it is a meaningful one. Arsenal have essentially tried to keep everything that made Trossard effective in this system, while adding a physical attribute he never had. If that holds up over a full season rather than one pre-season friendly, it represents smart, targeted recruitment rather than simply replacing a departing player for the sake of it. So here is where all of this actually leaves Arsenal. A pre-season win with 2 debutants already standing out. A midfield that may be about to gain one of the best defensive midfielders in the Premier League, with a shirt number seemingly being cleared for him before anything has even been confirmed. A genuine, aggressive, financially significant push being described around one of the most sought-after wingers in world football, built on months of quiet groundwork rather than a sudden decision. And several smaller pieces of business, a bid for experienced Premier League centre-back, a versatile South American fullback being offered around, and a winger Arsenal are simply being kept informed about rather than actively chasing. None of these stories exist in isolation. A club does not usually chase a defensive midfielder, a centre-back, a left-back option, and a marquee winger all at the same time unless there is a clear plan behind it. And everything laid out here points toward a squad being built with real intent, not panic. Some of it is confirmed, some of it is strong reporting that has not yet become official, and some of it is genuinely just a rumour that deserves to be treated with caution until there is an actual announcement. That is the full picture as it stands right now. If you want the next update the moment any of these situations move, whether that is a Guimaraes announcement, a Vinicius breakthrough, or confirmation on any of the smaller deals, Make sure you are subscribed because this window is only going to get busier from here.